Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Capital G here, and well, anyone who saw that awkward box opening video of mine a couple weeks back saw that I pulled a lot of copies of Feather, including a foil one, so I guess that means I had to build a Feather deck. Didn't really want to. I already have a couple other Boros commanders that I like playing with, but Feather is different enough that I'd figure why not. So let's see what we've got. I call it Feather for 60 because, as it turns out, my build was fairly close to $60. So I dropped it below that amount by changing out a few lands. So it's not necessarily the optimum build. It's not the optimum mana base per se. But it's definitely a good budget way of getting started with Feather. So let's see what we've got. What's Feather all about? For anyone who may not be in the know about this particular angel as of when they find my video, we're looking at white, white, and red for a 3/4 flyer. It says here, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets any creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of your next end step. Or not your next end step, but the next end step for that matter. So two key things we want to look at here. One, there's two ways to build Feather. One is that you can build Combat Trick Voltron, basically, and just have Feather be the only creature you really target with your instants and sorceries. You can also try a more balanced approach where you have several creatures on the board and power them up with a variety of instants and sorceries over the course of the game. I would mostly Feather Voltron, but I do have a few other creatures to target in case she's kept off the battlefield. So let's look at some of these. Battlefield Promotion puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature. They gain first strike, you gain 2 life. So this is sort of an accumulating power and toughness boost for any of our targets, namely Feather, of course. Brute Force, a 1 mana +3/+3 time shifted card. Used to be Giant Growth in green, it becomes Brute Force in red. Built to Smash, a similar effect, but it has to target an attacking creature. And if that creature just happens to be an artifact, it gains Trample. Can't really take advantage of that second line of text, unfortunately. But +3/+3 for 1 mana, especially since we'll be attacking every turn that we can. Seems good here. Defiant Strike and Expedite. These are some of the key cards. These are musts in any Feather deck, regardless of your style of build. Defiant Strike says target creature gets +1/0 until end of turn, and you get to draw a card. That's the keyword there, draw a card. It's a recurable card draw in Boros. Expedite, same deal. Target creature gains haste, draw a card. Fist of the Anvil, a more aggressive boost. 2 mana for a +4/+0 until end of turn. Gird for Battle, 1 mana. Put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So this is great for the wider strategy if you're not relying solely on Feather to go in for commander damage. We have God's Willing. 1 white instant. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and you get a scry of 1. We have Integrity and Intervention here for some variety. We can use either white or red mana with Integrity to give one of our creatures +2/+2 until the end of turn. Or if we need to shoot down a target, we can pay 4 and use Intervention to shoot down a target. 3 damage to target creature, player, or planeswalker, so any target, and we gain 3 life. Psychotic Fury, also a bit of a must in this deck. Another way of drawing a card for the cheap. Target multicolored creature gains double strike until end of turn. Fits mostly better if you go with the Feather Voltron strategy. Run Amok, 2 mana, target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and Trample. This doesn't have the whole artifact creature clause attached to it, so pretty sweet choice here. Samut Sprint, +2/+1 for 1 red mana, and it gives us a scry. Sure Strike gives us +3/0 and first strike until end of turn. Take Heart, +2/+2 and 1 life for each attacking creature we control. That life gain is going to help us with some durability because we don't have a lot of creatures to block against the crackback in this deck. Team or Battle Rage, target creature gains double strike. And that creature gains trample if you control a creature of power 4 or greater. Oftentimes our angel will be greater than 4 power because of our pump spells, so there you go. That's where we're going to use and take full advantage of this. Uncaged Fury, this one's a little more expensive at 3 mana, but it's +1/+1 and double strike. So that's our sort of boosting instant and sorcery package. We do have some mana rocks and mana fixers. So Boros Key Rune, Boros Locket, Boros Signet gives us our colors. Guild Globe costs 2, draws us a card, and we can pay 2, sack it to correct our mana colors. One-time use. Prophetic Prism is also 2 mana. It also draws us a card when it comes into play. And at any time we can filter 1 mana into whatever color we need. So these will help us correct our colors, especially in the early game. Mana Geode gives us any color we need, and it gives us a scry, so I decided to put this rock in here for that scry. We've got both Traveler's Amulet and Wanderer's Twig. They're both artifacts that do the same thing. They cost 1, they can be sacked off for 1 mana, and we get to search our deck for a basic land, reveal it, and put it in our hand. This will help us get that awkward double white in the early going to get Feather cast on as quickly as possible. Got a few more instances here. These are more defensive in nature. Adamant Will gives us indestructibility, +2/+2 and indestructible until end of turn. Got Boros Charm here, deals 4 damage to a player, or permanents we control are indestructible, or target creature gains double strike. So another way of giving our creatures double strike, but primarily a way to protect our board in case a sweeper comes our way. Gideon's Sacrifice. Choose a creature or planeswalker you control. All damage dealt to you this turn is dealt to the chosen permanent instead. We're playing with both Long Road Home and Otherworldly Journey. If someone wants to bounce our creature or hit us with some sort of exile effect, these will not only protect Feather from that, but it also lets us get a +1/+1 counter on Feather when it comes back into play. Feather or any of our other creatures. These creatures will only come back into play at the end of the turn, so they avoid the Wrath effects, they avoid the Mass Exile effects, they avoid the bounce effects. Survive the Night, another way of granting indestructible. This also grants us a clue token. A few creatures that can take advantage of our pump spells and our spells in general. Burning Prophet, it gets 1/0 and gives us a scry on every non-creature spell we cast, so we can go through our deck pretty quick with that. Both Electrostatic Field and Gutter Snipe will deal damage to all of our opponents for the spells that we are slinging. And New Krenko. Turns out he's pretty good in this deck. Because yes, he's a 1/2 for 3 mana, and whenever he attacks he gets a +1/+1 counter. And then we create that many Gobos, 1/1 tokens. Now what's nice is that with Feather and Krenko both out, Krenko can swing, we can pump Krenko and get 5, 6, 7, 8 goblins on the cheap. Bladed Bracers, a couple of pieces of equipment here. This one gives equipped creature +1/+1, and if it's a human or an angel, Feather just happens to be an angel, it gains vigilance. Drowsing Dagger, or Dowsing Dagger shall we say. 2 to play, 2 to equip. Equipped creature gets +2/+1, and our opponent gets 2/0/2 plant creature tokens with Defender. Feather's going to fly over with this. Dowsing Dagger is going to flip into Lost Veil. And we get some excellent mana wrap as a result of this. Imperial Plate. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand. It's 2 to play, 2 to equip, and it gives us a big power toughness boost. So I thought it was worth playing this particular equipment because we will have a lot of cards in our hand in this deck. Leering Emblem. Whenever you play a spell, equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Also 2 to play, 2 to equip. But yes, I like the idea of throwing this on a creature and then every non-creature spell we play having the added bonus of giving this equipped creature +2/+2. Scroll of the Masters, 2 to play. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a lore counter on Scroll of the Masters. And we can pay 3 and tap to have target creature we control get +1/+1 for each lore counter on Scroll of the Masters. It's pretty easy to boost this up so much that this would actually give us a bigger power toughness boost than our cards in hand. Sunforger, most expensive card in the deck, about $7-8 as of this recording. 3 to play, 3 to equip. It's pretty expensive, but that gives you that plus 4/0 boost, and it lets you pay white and red and unattach the Sunforger to get a red or white instant from our deck. Mana costs 4 or less, and play it for free. And then, of course, as long as our feather is out, we get that spell back. Obviously, we want to keep our opponents tapped down if we can, so our attackers get through, and it also slows down the crackback. So that's why I'm playing Authority of the Consuls here, as well as Blind Obedience. Both of these will also help us gain a little bit of life, so increasing our durability. Glimpse the Sun God. Tap X target creatures, scry 1. A tip you get, and something you can totally do: attack with feather. Pay white and X, target feather and or one of your other creatures, as well as all of your opponent's defenders. You're guaranteed to get through. We also run a Law Rune Enforcer. 1 in tap to tap a creature if converted mana costs 2 or greater. Takes a blocker out of the way. Sigardian Priest does a similar thing. Tap target non-human creature. We've got Retreat to Valakut here. 3 mana enchantment. Whenever a land comes in, we can either give one of our creatures plus 2/0 until the turn, or we can have it so that target creature cannot block. So this will help us get through for damage. Seismic Shift. This one's a little spicy. It's a 4 mana sorcery, one of the higher CMCs for our spells, but it lets us destroy a land. Since we are generally relying on one attacker at a time, we want to blow up those Maze of Ifs whenever we can. So destroy Maze of If. Up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn, so you can target one of your own creatures as well as one of your opponents. You get this spell back, so you have repeatable targeted land destruction. There's actually quite a bit of utility with that. Lastly, Thalia, Heretic Cathar. 3/2 first strike. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So again, slowing down our opponent's ability to block and crack back. We got some early card draw here with Faithless Looting and Scroll of Avacyn. 1 mana to play, 1 to sacrifice to draw a card. If we happen to control an angel, which our commander is, then we also gain 5 life. Thrabin Inspector, he's here as a 1/2 for 1. When he enters the battlefield, investigate, and if we're lucky, we'll be able to use our Long Road Home Street Quorum and get a bunch of clues with the Thrabin Inspector. Blessed Alliance. Tricky removal spell. You're probably going to pay at least 4 mana into this. The 2 to cast it and 2 to escalate it. Choose 1 or more. Target player gains 4 life, typically you. Untap up to 2 target creatures. You can untap your creatures. And target opponent sacrifices an attacking creature. So we're really going to use this on defense. We're going to pay 4. We're going to untap 2 of our creatures. And we're going to force our opponent to sacrifice their attackers. Bring to Trial. Exile target creature of power 4 or greater, so just take one of our opponent's creatures out for good. Chain to the Rocks. 1 mana, and we have to have a mountain in play because this has to enchant one of our mountains. We exile a target creature and opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield, so it's 1 mana removal. The only condition is that we need a mountain in play. Crush Contraband. Exile target artifact, exile target enchantment. We can do 1 or both of these for 4 mana. Wrath Effect here with Fumigate. Destroy all creatures, gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. We don't have so many creatures on the board typically, so Fumigate's going to gain us a bunch of life and clear the way for our board. Shattering Blow, just exile target artifact at instant speed with no color dependence as far as this deck is concerned. Single Combat. I love the art on this one. Just a good old-fashioned throwdown. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. So what's nice about this sweeper is that it reduces everyone to 1 creature or 1 planeswalker. And no, players can't cast creature spells or planeswalker spells until the end of our next turn, which includes us. That means on our next turn we won't be able to play any more creatures, but that's fine. We are playing mostly instants and sorceries. In fact, mostly instants. Swords to Plowshares, of course, another 1 mana removal. Just exile a creature and Our opponent will gain life equal to its power. So be it. Totally worth the investment. Tail Slash. This one's a little spicy. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So, pump up one of your creatures a couple of times. Play this, clear the way. Topple a statue. If there's an artifact we need to destroy, we can pay 3 mana, destroy it, and draw a card. If there isn't, we can target our own creatures with this to draw a card and get it back. Wear and Tear. One of those split cards that has the fuse ability, so we can cast both sides. We get to destroy an artifact and or destroy an enchantment. As for lands, these are the budget-friendly lands that I can come up with so far. Battlefield Forge, Pain Land, taps for colorless or taps for one of our colors, dealing 1 damage to us. Burrow's Garrison, taps for both of our colors. Yes, we have to return a land to our hand, but that's fine. It's a great turn 2 play. Burrow's Guildgate, white or red, straight up comes into play tapped. Clifftop Retreat. If we already have a mountain or plains on the battlefield, this comes in untapped, and we get both of our colors from that. Command Tower. I generally don't like playing Command Tower in a 2-color deck, but it belongs here because we want to ensure a quick casting of our commander. Evolving Wilds. That means Terramorphic Expanse is also here, and this will help us fix our basic lands in the early going. Ghost Quarter as another way to destroy one of our opponent's non-basics. Inspiring Vantage. As long as we control 2 or fewer other lands, when this comes down, this will come in untapped for us, and it gives us both our colors. Mountains, we have 10 of those. Plains, we are running 14. Needle Spires, this comes into play tapped, but we can turn it into a 2/1 elemental with double strike by paying 4 mana into it. Stone Quarry just comes in tapped, gives us our colors. Temple of Triumph comes into play tapped, gives us our colors and a scry when it comes into play. There's the aforementioned Terramorphic Expanse, and the Windscarred Crag gives us a 1-point life gain as well as our colors. Obviously, less budget dependent versions of this will have a stronger mana base. It would include things like Mana Confluence and City of Brass. Those are cards that I would play in this deck. Let's see what EDH Rec suggests for upgrades. We don't need to know, but we're going to focus on spells and creatures here. We're not going to worry too much about land. So it wants us to look at a Soul Ring. Our deck is a little too color hungry for that, I think, so I'd rather not play Soul Ring here. Path to Exile, another 1 mana removal spell, would be an excellent choice. Obviously fun to combo off when we can hit our own creatures with this. Smothering Tithe, great mana accelerant in white. A lot of these decks end up also playing Zada because of Zada's give everybody the effect of the spell ability. I personally don't see it necessary, so I don't run it myself. Young Pyromancer, whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, so this is an army in a can for us. And in fact, Path to Exile, Young Pyromancer, and Feather is the combo that gives us all the basic lands we could ever want. We cast a spell. Let's say we've already cast a spell, we've got our elemental token. We Path to Exile the token to get our lands. And then the Young Pyromancer, of course, creates another token. Repeat the cycle each turn. Swordfoot Boots, 2 mana artifact, 1 to equip, hexproof and haste. Not a bad choice. Again, it's because this deck has that $60 ceiling on it. I won't be able to put Swiftfoot Boots in. Shelter, this is a great common and should be fairly easy to pick up, as it was reprinted recently enough. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice and draw a card for 2 mana. So 2 mana says draw a card. We already have God's Willing, which is 1 mana, and the Scry. This is a bit better. Aurelia's Fury. This went from bulk rare to high demand card. I don't have one of these though. Otherwise, I'd have put it in my deck for sure. X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of creatures or players. Tap each creature dealt damage this way. And players dealt damage this way can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So this does a lot. You have, say, 1 point of damage target one of our creatures, and the rest target our opponents and or their creatures, and we get the spell back. And Crimson Wisps, another comment from this one from Lauren, that makes one of our creatures hasty and red until end of turn and draws us a card for 1 mana. And lastly, Eerie Interlude. This is definitely better for the builds that have a lot of creatures that they would like to target. So if you have like 6-7 creatures on the board and you want to blink them out until end of turn, Eerie Interlude is your card to do that. Exile any number of target creatures you control, and they come back at the beginning of the next end step. So this can see to it that your whole board dodges mass removal. I keep talking about that $60 budget, so let's head over to the details here. I posted this on the 5th of May. I wasn't satisfied with my original recording, so that's why I'm redoing this now. As you can see here, I'm still showing a price of $58.40 US for this particular combination of cards, with most of the expense going into our commander. Psychotic Fury being a very popular common all of a sudden. Boros Charm is a little bit expensive in comparison to the rest of the deck. New Krenko is still fairly cheap actually. So Sunforger, of course, is the big money card at $7. Other than that, after that comes down to the mana base, I can actually reduce the price further if I chose not to play the Cliffdrop Retreat or the Inspiring Vantage or the Temple of Triumph. If you take these 3 lands out, we're down to maybe $53. But we do want to have a solid land base just because of that awkward white-red casting cost on Feather. Alright, so this evil angel is making me lose my voice here, so I'm going to cut the video here. Great talking to you all, and I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and I will see you all for the next one. Bye for now.